Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. And it's my great pleasure today to welcome Monica Wooden, the CEO of MercuryGate, where we're going to talk about the build versus buy decision for 3PLs. And this is a great question, a topic that I've written about and talked about over the past few years. And I think it is a question that a lot of 3PLs, continue to, weigh the different pros and cons of those different approaches. So I certainly look forward to, having this conversation with Monica. Just as a reminder, part of our goal here at Talking Logistics is to get you, the audience, involved in the conversation. So as Monica and I are having our conversations, if you've got a question for Monica, you can do so via the question button or via the chat feature, and I'll keep an eye on it. And certainly, if we've got time and it's a good and appropriate question, I'll weave it into the conversation. For those of you that are joining us as visitors, in order for you to ask a question, you will have to register first. So just letting you know. So with that, Maja, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Adrian. Real glad to be here.
Great. Well, before we, kind of dive into the topic, I always love, to ask my guests, how they got involved in the logistics industry. So let's start with that. How did you get involved with, supply chain logistics? Tell us a little bit about kind of your career path and kind of what your current role and responsibilities are.
Yeah. Always great stories to bring the past. Sometimes you forget where you come from. I was an executive at IBM running our Florida consulting business, and we also had to support an industry, and I was providing support for the transportation and distribution industry solution offerings. Back in 1996, we saw the internet coming, and we really felt that the internet was the innovation that was really important to truly automate transportation management processes. So we began to build a new transportation management system using a proprietary application development toolkit. And just before we were ready to launch the TMS in a big way, it was about early 2000, Lou Gerstner, who was the CEO at the time, and obviously did a great job bringing IBM back to their leadership position. He decided that IBM wasn't good in the application space, and he sold all of IBM's supply chain assets off to the then i2 Technologies. So me and my team were kind of in that quandary of, do we go to work for i2? Do we just do generic consulting inside of IBM? Or do we maybe take the entrepreneur road and start a new company? So we decided that in October of 2000, we were going to launch MercuryGate. We're going to start with a blank piece of paper and build an affordable TMS that was built from the ground up for 3PLs. This was huge for us to make sure that the architecture was a many-to-many. It was very conducive to boarding new clients, multi-tenant. The maturity of the development tools in late 2000 was really good. Unfortunately, our timing was tough because if everyone remembers, 2000 was the dot-com bust. So good news, bad news. There was no money to be had to start MercuryGate, so we launched it without pay, without any outside investors, but we knew what we wanted to build, and so we built it, and we grew very slowly for the first 9 years of our existence. So I've had the pleasure of leading MercuryGate into achieving our vision, which has been to build a very, very affordable TMS that was robust enough to be able to handle the 3PL business as well as direct shippers. So as many may know, this is our only mission at MercuryGate. and our only product is our TMS.
Great story. It's incredible how different decisions can impact others, and the fact that you were kind of working on this internally at IBM, and then based on IBM's decision to kind of not continue in that line of business, kind of allowed you or gave you the opportunity to go down this path. Um, so let's talk now about kind of the 3PL build versus buy decision. A few years ago, I wrote a blog posting called "The IT Dilemma for 3PLs," where I described, the situation that I saw many 3PLs facing, which was, they were trying to decide whether they should continue to build and develop their own IT systems in-house, or whether they should, implement third-party solutions instead. And when I talked to 3PLs and I was doing the research, there were definitely two different camps. And in the camp for continuing to develop their own solutions, one of the key arguments that I heard was, 3PLs view IT as a competitive differentiator, and I believe that. I think it is one of the areas that they can compete on. Um, and so they wanted to control that. And as one 3PL put it to me, he said, if we and most of our competitors were using the same TMS or the same solutions, then how can we differentiate, if we're all basically using the same, and offering the same capabilities to customers? So what would be kind of your response to customers, or 3PLs that kind of put forth that argument?
Well, just a few points maybe on this, because it is a very good argument, and this is really the center. Is we all know that IT, technology alone isn't a solution. People and process are equally as important. So, we've completed over 300 TMS implementations, and I can honestly tell you that each of our clients use the TMS very differently. So, and maybe the second point is that when you go in to sell as a 3PL, when you go in to sell a shipper, there's a sense of risk management here that helps the shipper get over some of the hurdles of doing business with you. And one of them is, what if my level of service or the level of service of my 3PL degrades? Do I constantly have to start over? Offering a commercially available TMS is a very strong sales proposition for a confident 3PL. So, for example, should we not live up to the expectations that we're committing here? You've got 200 other 3PLs that use the same commercially available TMS. We've seen our clients be very successful using this argument against 3PLs with proprietary TMSs. Nobody wants to start over. At the same time, being confident that you'll continuously deliver, on the commitments that you make for your customer, show that you're putting it out there. And we've seen year after year our customers get extensions to their outsourced shippers and use it as a positive against a proprietary one solution. And then, the third point I'll make is that TMS is, and maybe this is a little bit of what we want to do from an education standpoint. If it's only a vanilla or a chocolate TMS, it's absolutely not the right TMS for a 3PL. It's got to be able to support shippers of all types, complexities, and workflows. And so, in some respects, the person making that comment, it's very compelling, provided there are not TMSs in the marketplace that offer the ability to have different workflows, to have different logic and business rules without custom coding that puts you on that same proprietary development path. So I think that in the last decade, that transportation management systems have become very much advanced. They're not like what they look like. They're not vanilla and chocolate. They support whatever flavor the 3PL needs to be able to offer. They support the complexity of the business rules that their shipper needs. So I think, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was a great point. Everybody looked the same, but not today.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you're right. I mean, I think when I first started in the industry, first of all, very few, if any, of the software vendors were kind of catering to 3PLs, right? They were mostly focused on manufacturers, retailers, and 3PLs had very unique requirements, and that's really what led a lot of 3PLs really to invest in their own solutions because they really couldn't find anything off the shelf, if you will, for them to use. And I think there is probably, um, uh, particularly by some 3PLs, maybe a lack of understanding of the advancements that have been made with regards to architectures, these past few years where you can really configure and tailor these solutions that even though you may be working with a single vendor, all of you may be working with a single vendor, the way you actually deploy and use it, can be completely different just because of the way the capabilities that these solutions enable you now to configure and whether it's the user interface or the business rules or
Right.
so on and so forth. Um, well, let me ask you another question because here's the other argument that I hear, Monica, in terms of keeping the development in house, and that is that they want to have more control over the innovation cycle versus kind of being at the mercy of a software vendor's release cycle. So, in other words, 3PLs are constantly getting requirements, for new functionality, new capabilities, whether they're internal, to them, their internal users, or customers are looking to enable new services or new reports or new capabilities. And in fact, historically, IT was the kind of the key constraint for a lot of 3PLs, where a customer will want them to enable a new service or a new capability, and it would take a 3PL, 6, 9 months to do it. And part of that was because they needed to kind of work with their third-party software vendor, perhaps, to maybe add some functionality. So they said, why be at the mercy of a third party? Rather for us to control our own destiny with regards to the innovation cycle, be able to respond quickly to new capabilities, new changes. So, um, what would you say to a 3PL that's concerned about losing control of the innovation cycle, and maybe what's different today than in the past? Because I think that was a valid requirement, certainly years ago.
Yeah, I would say this is, to me, probably the most valid concern. Um, Software companies can be notorious, and I mean that in I'm a software company, but you I think the um, company that you do business with, you really have to understand their culture and their objectives and what their vision is for their company. We've maintained being 100% a software company devoted to delivering a solution for 3PLs. And we have a lot of shippers as well and companies of all sizes, but to be able to attract the 3PL, you have to solve this problem. The way we've solved it is we have 8-week development cycles. We've done this since October of 2000. What this means is that our customers get innovation every 8 weeks. And I can tell you that this blows these guys away. Number one, some are scared. And then number two, some go, wow, I can truly get the functionality I need in a shorter period than perhaps I could even do with my own IT staff. So a company that has this built into their DNA, their culture, every 8 weeks of new releases, and being able to do this without systems going down, without our customers having to worry about the testing, the quality, all of those types of aspects. I mean, that's a big area. And then the most important is giving control to the 3PL. There are TMSs that you can customize, and then there are advanced TMSs that you can control. And what I mean by that is the ability to have your own GUI, the ability to have whatever workflow you want, the ability to control your own logic, having a rules-based workbench where you don't have to have developers. You can change the logic of the system. The ability to do your own programmable documents without needing IT programmers. The ability to do reporting and decision support across objects, and to do it on an operational basis as well as analytics. The ability to do planning, optimization without needing incredible advanced skills. What we've tried to do in the whole vision of our TMS to support this market, you must give 100% control to the 3PL. Now, I will say this. We have 3PLs who have total control of their own destiny. We have 3PLs that control a large facet, ask us for help in areas that they don't have resources in, and we have some who ask us to do maybe even a little bit more. But the point is, you never want to be holding to a software company when this is your business. So I agree with this comment. This is the whole vision of building a TMS from the ground up for a 3PL. They must have software they can control 100%. They must have a vendor dedicated to the cycles and the responsiveness that they need. And on top of it, if you could get this same controlling software delivered in the cloud, or at least have an option for it in the cloud, or host it yourself, then you truly have enterprise software that is very much like your own.
As you were talking, Monica, it struck me that, you're talking about, the ability to give, 3PLs, control and kind of that flexibility. It seems to me that that the concept of an application is actually changing, right? Because when you think of an application, whether it's a TMS or a WMS or whatever, any enterprise application, I think the traditional thought is here's a packaged product that's got some built-in best practices and go use it. And it seems to me that the industry has moved now, and I don't want to get too technical, right? But it seems to me that now really the ideal model, because a lot of companies, not only 3PLs, but shippers and manufacturers, retailers, they're dealing with so much change, and they have to make changes to their processes and their operations much more on a more frequent basis. That these applications have now become more, I don't know what the right word is a platform, I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, do we need to kind of change when we think of a TMS, let's say, when we think of any other enterprise application, where ongoing change and requirements are kind of something that's kind of ongoing? You really need to really look at the architecture and think of it more as a platform to build off of, to make those continuous changes.
Yeah, I mean, adaptability of a platform means that it can live in perpetuality, right? I mean, you can, we used to think of, as a CIO, we used to think if we could get 7, 8, 10 years out of a software product, we were getting an ROI. I think in the world today, that software shouldn't be thought like that. You should think of software as a platform that allows you to adapt and change and support your business as it goes through its life cycle. And this was one of the biggest things from our whole vision, was to give this adaptable platform so that people didn't, there's a lot of functionality in our system, but you don't need to use it all today. You can start out, you can grow. You have a platform that's not going to be tired in 8 years, 10 years. I love the old time words, and maybe a lot of folks who have proprietary TMSs are in this state of, you're in an enhanced restricted state of your software. You're in a maintenance stable state. You can't make any more changes to it or it's going to fall apart. You can't enhance it anymore because it doesn't have the architecture to allow to enhance it. Those are software products that have come to the end of life. Okay? And I truly think that the software products of today are platform. They are adaptable, and not just configurable, but adaptable in ability to take on different types of looks, feels, logics, businesses that you need to go into, that type of place. And that's really the vision that we had. And unfortunately, I think there's a misconception in the marketplace that SaaS software seems to be dumbing down. And maybe if you take a older application that's more enhanced restricted and you bring it into the cloud, perhaps that's the case. But the technologies that are most fruitful and will live for a very, very long time are ones that have this flexibility built in, that have a single code base, so that you're getting new features and you're still getting that control and you're still getting the ability to change. This is a masterful architecture and a vision that over the years that Steve Blau and 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 many of us had doing consulting, of looking at carriers, logistics companies, shippers of all sizes, really came to the conclusion of the architecture that was necessary to support this type of an application. And believe me, I mean, this is the bones. And maybe we're not the greatest marketing company in the world to explain what we built, because spending all of our time supporting our customers and trying to make sure that each and every one of them are delivering for their clients and their business. But this is truly what platforms look like today.
Yeah, that's a great point in terms of the state that we're in terms of platforms. And I think this is part of the whole conversation around the consumerization of IT, because certainly on our consumer products, for those of us that might have iPhones, right, and we've got apps on there, they're continuously getting updated, and you can quickly, just with the press of a button, get new functionality on those smartphone apps. And even with my blog, I use WordPress. WordPress it's continuously getting upgraded, and all the plugins get upgraded, and literally within minutes of just pressing buttons, I get all those updates on an ongoing basis. Let's to continue the conversation a little bit here. I often point out that when you look at some of the large 3PLs out there, many of them have more IT resources than many of their customers do. And even some technology companies. On the flip side, when you look at a lot of the smaller 3PLs, they have very limited or non-existent, IT departments. So you can simplify the IT dilemma by saying, well, if you're a small 3PL and you have limited or no IT resources, then you should buy a third party. You should go the third party route. And if you're a very large 3PL and you've got a lot of IT resources and you've already invested in developing your own platforms, well, maybe you should continue to go down that route. I mean, is it that simple? Does size matter? Is the dilemma different for large 3PLs versus smaller 3PLs, or do you think they face the same considerations and trade-offs?
Well, I think they have the same considerations, and the reason why I say that, certainly the bigger companies will have, like you said, more resources, more money. But it's amazing to me how the smaller middle market company really thinks that this is easy stuff to build. They can do it. So we see a lot of smaller companies think that they need to have their own technology to be able to differentiate them. So a lot of companies will start up and will put large capital investments into the technology before even being successful on the business side. Certainly, this is a personal decision, but and it could be very costly, and it could be one where um, maybe your business side isn't quite the right plan, therefore the technology doesn't really go anywhere. We've also seen big companies feel that they just need a break, that they've done this for so long, and believe me, there's a reason they've done this for so long. There has not been a lot of choices in this marketplace. I cannot blame anyone. If I started a 3PL in 2000, I would have built my own as well. Okay, the choices available were very expensive, not very flexible, and beholden to the software company. I get it. At the same time, now is a good time just to take off, the glasses and say, hey, what really is in the marketplace? Can I get something that allows me to have a software vendor as a partner, yet be able to be unique and different and still have these controls? And oh, by the way, can I redirect my people and maybe be not be so inwardly focused and be champions of IT, but be champions of logistics operational processes? Maybe be better from add more resources from a sales support standpoint, be stronger at the operations, move globally. It takes a lot of resources to move into different markets, and maybe I can take some of my headcount and move them into these areas. The other thing that's happening with big companies is, IT resources in this country are very hard to come by. Um, we do not have enough software developers in this country, and we have limits on how many we can bring into this country. So, what's happening out there? Are you able to retain your internal people? Are you able to hire more? Or when you lose someone, does all that knowledge go away? I mean, those are real questions that even the biggest guy has. Okay? Certainly, if I start a business and I think I can go into it, I'd just soon buy a software product that can give me what I need to see if my business could be successful. And actually, I'd love to buy it at more of a transaction type of a pricing. And boy, if I'm successful, I can make all kinds of decisions later as to where I want to go. So I just think it comes down to, it's really funny. I see most of these types of decisions have nothing to do with business sense. They are absolutely personal gut feel. You talk to a CEO of a big 3PL who's had a horrid history of people delivering information systems for him or her, they will buy all day. You have another CEO who has been very successful in being able to deliver their own proprietary systems, they will control all day. So a lot of times I think it's really just a personal decision from an executive, and that's the way it's going to be.
Interesting insights there. And it occurred to me, maybe it's not when you were mentioning kind of redeploying, resources or having resources focus on different things. I mean, certainly another option is kind of a hybrid option, right? Where maybe for certain things you go the third party route, and then there are some areas that you do maybe focus your own IT development on. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that is exactly what we see the big companies doing. So, for example, they may have a very nice internal TMS, but maybe it can't support inbound transportation. Maybe it can't support a global operation. Maybe they're really strong at freight under management and just stepping out into the domestic brokerage or the freight forwarding business. And instead of compiling a whole bunch of people and a bunch of business folks on requirements and stuff, they turn to the software market to look for solutions that can help them in these areas that are faster to get into the market, that are less expensive to build themselves, and they see where they go. And then what happens a lot for us is once a company gets familiar with our technology and sees the controls that they have, we typically then expand across the business units in that logistics company. But you only do it when it makes sense. For example, I'm not a big proponent of killing a technology and moving everything onto a new platform and saying, okay, that's it, we're done. I would much rather bring in a new technology and go after business that I haven't been able to win in my legacy systems. Get me something here. Get me something that I haven't been able to win, I haven't been able to automate. And then it makes sense. I'll gradually move my portfolio over to the new platform. But I'm not a big proponent of just doing technology for the sake of technology. You want to be able to put technology in so that you can go into new markets, you can board clients faster than you've ever been able to. You want to be able to increase your business top line and your profits, not just make a technology swap.
Yeah, I love that last, comment in terms of kind of putting IT, in the context of, the top line, kind of focusing on those areas first that can help you capture new business or new clients or new verticals, so on and so forth, and focusing on that area first. We've got time for maybe a couple of more questions. I just want to remind everyone joining live that if you do have a question for Monica, not now is the time to to post it as we kind of come to the end of our time here. So kind of to wrap up this discussion, Monica, so what advice would you give to 3PLs, that are facing this kind of build versus buy, dilemma? What are some of the questions perhaps that they should ask themselves? Some of the key factors and trade-offs that they should consider.
Well, probably the first question to be asked is at what cost? And it's not just the IT cost, but it's the cost of boarding new clients, the cost of gathering requirements to add new functionality. And the second question I would ask is your current TMS enhanced restricted? Can you get into new markets swiftly without a lot of cost to see if you can be successful? For example, can you provide inbound transportation solutions to your clients? Can you provide global solutions for your clients? Is your current system allowing you to do that? Lots of times, adding on functionality after the fact is even harder for information systems. And then I would look at, your retention. What's the turnover rate in your IT staff? Is that becoming an issue? And the final point that probably is a new one to consider is, are you on a path of acquisitions? There's lots of consolidations going on in the logistics service provider marketplace. Would a new platform allow you to acquire and assimilate these new companies faster? Lots of times you see acquisitions going on out there, and it's funny because the two or three or four or five IT groups are all arguing about mine's better, whose is better. Well, you know what? This is a great opportunity to say, forget it. We're just going to go with a common platform that everybody's going to go on it, and there's no pride of authorship anymore. So sometimes the executives need to think a little bit about their path of growth, new business areas. Don't spend a lot of money on technology to see if you're going to be successful. You're growing through acquisition. It's great to have a platform that would be common to everyone and um, still give you the controls that you need across the company. So.
Yeah, all great questions, Monica. Um, so just to wrap up here now, I'll end kind of shifting gears completely. I'll end with another question that I like to ask all of my guests, and that is, what if, one of our, target audiences that we have here at Talking Logistics is, students and young professionals, people just getting started in the supply chain logistics industry. So I love taking the opportunity when I have, great executives such as yourself on the program to really, give you the opportunity to provide them with advice, right? So what advice would you give to, students, young professionals that are, either pursuing a career in supply chain logistics or just getting started? What are some of the things they should be doing today to really pave a successful career down the road?
It's a great point. Boy, we need so many young professionals in the supply chain logistics space. Very much like you know this this country needs so many folks in engineering, in software development, computer science, in logistics. So really keeping a keen eye on understanding process reengineering, the ability to um, learn how to professionally and with quality gather requirements and understand how people would use systems. If you're um, a real smart, analytical person who can understand process and gathering requirements and how people can use things, um, that skill is so important in logistics, transportation, supply chains. Getting familiar with types of software products such as what we have. We offer our uh, technology to all of the universities. Certainly, when you're a SaaS multi-tenant uh, TMS, it's pretty easy for us to do this. So I'm not patting myself on the back, but just get familiar with lots of different technologies in the marketplace. This is the easy part for uh, the youngsters of today, so I'm not going to dwell on that. The harder part is really being able to take courses that have you really understand process. And to me, that's the biggest advice that I would give all of you. And also, I'm a fan of statistics. I'm a math, and the statistics are not anything to do with analytics. And this is always going to help you in the supply chain logistics space.
Well, Monica, great advice. And with that, we're out of time. So thank you very much for taking the time today to, at least get the conversation started on this, great topic.
And thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for who joined us live in today's program. We didn't get any questions here. But if you do, if you are listening to this on demand, if you do have a question for Monica, please go to talkinglogistics.com, find the episode, and post it there. And I'm sure Monica will be happy to to respond there. Again, thank you very much for joining, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.